11th of the 11th, known as Armistice Day. For us old ones, because there was a war once upon a time called World War I. Started in 1914, ended in 1918. And this was the day when everybody agreed they would stop firing at each other. But it was only on what they called the Western Front, kiddies. You see, because it kept going everywhere else except in the Western Front, which I presume was Europe. Anyway, and on that day too, I think my parents got married. The 11th of the 11th, but not 18, later. But anyway, it was an important day for people, especially between 1918 and the beginning of World War II. In fact, a lot of people would say that the big powers at the end of World War I divided up Europe so selfishly, and Africa and lots of other parts of the world. Colonialism came into play and in fact set the stage for the beginning of World War II. So that's today, and you have a moment's silence around the Western world anyway, where people seem to stop. I don't know if they stopped around here. Trams stopped, used in the old days. People stopped walking in the streets. But it's getting a bit further away every year, naturally. And as the memories die out, I don't know whether they'll keep it. They may keep it up. But Armistice Day means a lot to a lot of us old people. And also, it was classified later as marking the death of God. A lot of people said, well, if that's what God allows, millions of people to be killed in World War I, well, then we don't want to have anything to do. And a lot of the governments used to, when they assembled their armed forces, they used to have clergymen of various kinds standing out the front, all dressed up, with candles and holy water, throwing water and blessing soldiers, sailors and air persons, and that didn't help much for people to understand that God's got nothing to do with war. It's us who make wars, but because we invoke God's names, like saying, as you leave your fatherland to go and fight the enemy, well then God blesses you, and we pray that you will have success in killing lots and lots of no good for the people at the time. So the death of God, interesting. Anyway, here we are talking about God this morning, out of a piece of the New Testament called, what is it called? Mark's Gospel. And it's about chapter 12, and it's only a few verses. But they're spectacular verses, especially for anybody who wants to reckon that God is dead, because this is supposed to bring God alive again. The large crowd was delighted with what Jesus had said. Anyway, he continued teaching. Listen to this. Watch out for the religion scholars. They love to walk around in academic gowns, preening in the radiance of public flattery, basking in prominent positions, sitting at the head table at every church function, and all the time they're exploiting the weak and the helpless. The longer their prayers, the worse they get, and they'll pay for it in the end. Now that's not a commo, or an anarchist, or anybody else talking. That's your Jesus, allegedly the founder of the Christian firm. How are we going to get back to the origins and take notice of what? Because if you listen to this, in fact, you'd be very, very, very suspicious of religious services where clerics are wandering around dressed up in all kinds of fine. Here, because he says, the longer their prayers, the worse they get. Sitting across from the offering box. I mean, it doesn't sound much, but I mean, I think there was almost an ATM or something, almost, in the wall of the temple wall. I can't explain because I've never been there, but I mean, it was big enough for people to put in loads of money or put in next to nothing. So he's sitting opposite that hole in the wall. He was observing how the crowd tossed money in for the collection. See, always mixed up with religion is money. Many of the rich were making large contributions. One poor widow came up and put in 2 small coins a measly 2 cents. Jesus called his disciples over and said, the truth is that this poor widow gave more to the collection than all the others put together. All the others gave what they'll never miss. She gave extravagantly what she couldn't afford. She gave her all. So there you go. That's the founder of the firm stating a couple of basic principles upon which the church was supposed to be built. But I mean, if you have a close look at that, but you don't even have to have a close look, just a passing look at that, you'd almost join the opposition to churches and religious institutions around the world, almost. The widow, and the widow's 2 small coins. How many people, in fact the 99% I think, that are the church around the world are made up of people like this woman in the story, the 99%. In fact, the ones may be, I suspect, who elected Mr. Obama as the President of the United States of America. Seem to be convinced that, and he seemed to be convinced that in fact helping the poor and the young was priority number 1, whereas the other side seemed to think that priority number 1 was helping the rich to get richer and maybe dropping a few coins into the hands of the poor in the form of, what, handouts if you showed that you didn't have the ability to get on in the world. So I think it's an important reading, especially here in Melbourne, Victoria, Australia, where we're going through an inquiry into alleged cover-ups by senior clergymen of sexual abuse of young people by Catholic clergymen. Ghastly business. It's in the papers almost every day. But see, the secular state is running the inquiry, thank God, because religions won't ordinarily investigate themselves, and if they do, they do a lot of covering up because they're not used to transparency and accountability. So here's the secular state in Victoria, and also in another state, I think New South Wales, and a bit of a push for a national royal commission. But if you go back to this, you're not surprised. You don't even have to be a secularist, you can be a religionist. Watch out for the religion scholars. They love to walk around dressed up, preening, etc., etc. And they're exploiting the weak and the helpless. The longer their prayers, the worse. It's all there in the book, ladies and gentlemen. And by the way, there's another book I see, which I've ordered, The Testament of Mary, by a bloke called Colm Toynbee, an Irishman, who what do you call it? Retrofitting the New Testament, so that you have to work out how certain things come across just by reading the Gospels. But one point that he makes, for example, and I like it because it means that instead of taking everything as it's been passed down to us about the stories, we have to try to work out what sense the stories make for us right here, right now. And this woman, Mary, his mother allegedly, is a key player. She's sitting around at home, and all the young people are turning up listening to her young son, Jesus, and she's starting to wonder what's going on here. I mean, are they all having a rage together? What are they doing? Are they turning her son into something that she believes that he may not be? So it's interesting just to try to have another look at what was going on during those first 33 years. For example, how come Matthew, Mark and Luke don't have Mary at the crucifixion? Well, it mightn't sound much to you, but it sounds to an insider like me, wondering, well, why didn't they put Mary at the crucifixion? Because you've got to have the mother at the drama, the dramatic end of this story, when he's 33 and he's being executed because he wouldn't shut his mouth and he was rocking the boat on behalf of the 99%. And then it seems, even according to the tradition of Greek tragedy, that you've got to have the mother there as the key witness because she knows the whole story, allegedly. Anyhow, that's all for today, Armistice Day, ladies and gentlemen, and we apologise to our, fans on church.tv, but anyway, it's going upwards, isn't it, to the ether or something?
It will go to YouTube.
Go to YouTube, see?
Today.
So we're doing as much as we can with what we've got, aren't we? Ta-da!